Greetings and hello, and allow me to welcome you to The Last Video Store, the show where I, Alexi Toliopoulos, talk to interesting people about their favorite movies. Yes, we are celebrating cinema on this podcast, and The Last Video Store has every single film available for you to rent on its shelves. And today's customer is Abubakar Salim, an excellent actor that you know from House of the Dragon, where he plays Alan of Hull. He's in Company of Wolves. He's a voice actor in Assassin's Creed Origin. He's also a video game director. He has got the game Tales of Kenzara Zhao out now on basically every platform. PS5, Steam, it's on Switch. It's a beautiful game. It's in that Metroidvania platform action style. And I'll read you a little synopsis of the game. A grieving boy begins to read a Bantu tale written by his late father. Adventure into the beautiful and treacherous lands of Kenzara as Zhao, a young shaman who bargains with the god of death to bring his Baba back from darkness. Beautiful. He is a beautiful, exciting, interesting actor that I'm so excited came into the show today to talk about some of his favorite movies, how they've influenced his work, how they've influenced his performance. And man, we had a freaking riot. We had such a good time. So we're going to get into our talk with Abubakar Salim in a second. But I would like to say that if you want a customized bespoke recommendation from me based on your taste, you can send me your new release and 2 weekly titles, and I will give you a recommendation. You can do it on our Instagram at Last Video Store Batuta, in the YouTube comments if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, send it in as a 5-star review. And we've got one in here, producer Dio Dave, baby.
Hello.
First time coming on the podcast.
I feel honored and privileged.
Wow, it is a privilege, it is an honor, and I respect you.
Thank you. Likewise.
Wow. Well, that's another review.
Yeah,
we've got respect.
Likewise, 5 stars. This other 5-star review comes in from Super Erogator out of the United States of America.
Wow, howdy, pal.
Howdy.
Is, I believe, the parlance they use over there.
Yes, home of Hollywood, I've heard. This review says, having followed all the Finding series, as well as many other Cam and Alexi creations, I am loving this part of the canon. The guests have been fun. Their choices I have cheered, sneered, and looked into.
Wow, wow, okay. That's also very Alexi writing style, to do 3 things that are crazy.
Continues. Thank you for all the memories and the movies I had missed. My 3 picks. The new release, Pig, with Nick Cage.
Oh, one of my favorites in the last few years too.
Weeklies are Roadside Prophets with John Doe of the band X and Adam Horowitz of Beastie Boys.
Dude,
fame.
I've not seen this movie.
You haven't
Super
seen
Irrigator, you've stumped me, but I will see this movie now.
Wow, okay.
Thank you for giving me a recommendation.
There you go. And after listening to your chat with Charlie about vampires and digging up my VHS of Near Dark, I have to toss in The Hunger, as I showed it to everyone in the 90s who could listen.
Wow. Okay, great movie. I love The Hunger, Tony Scott. I'm a big vampire guy. Let it be known. I'm a big vampire guy. I'm going to give you another vampire recommendation.
Well, hang on. The review doesn't end there.
Oh, really? Okay.
It continues. David Bowie and Catherine Deneuve were perfect.
They are perfect.
And lastly, look at Eddie and the Cruisers. I'm surprised you missed it.
That is one that came up in our discussion with Cam recently. Cam James, my dear buddy. I've not seen that movie. I have just purchased the DVD.
Oh,
so we've got it in the store in the archive. I'm going to chuck it on. I'm going to go for a vampire movie for Super Irrigator as well. Martin from 1977. George A. Romero, the director of Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead. He had an interesting take on the vampire with Martin, a man who believes to be a vampire, goes to live with his elderly and hostile cousin in a small Pennsylvania town where he tries to redeem his blood-craving urges. This is one of the best vampire movies of all time. It's gritty the way that Near Dark is. Beautiful, beautiful film. And the new restoration, this 4K restoration that just came out, is just fantastic. Huge recommendation from Martin. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Super Arrogator. Neither of us know how to say your name. We've tried really hard to say how we say it, but it's a nickname, so you can't be too offended. Let us get into our chat with Abubakar Salim. This is a great episode. I'm so excited for you guys to hear it. And I'll say it, House of the Dragon is like one of the only TV shows I watch, so I was very excited to hang out with him today.
The Last Video Store.
Abu, thank you for wandering into this forbidden realm of the last video store.
Thank you, man. I feel like I've traveled across the world.
Well, I think you literally have, and I think metaphorically you have as well.
Absolutely.
And perhaps through time as well.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I've traveled to the future. That's 100% happening right now.
I mean, technically, we're all traveling to the future, just rather slowly. Rather slowly, but we're all slowly getting there.
Yeah.
But thank you for joining me in here. When was the last time you were inside a video store just like this one?
Oh, man. Years ago. Like, I think I was a kid. I was a real, like, tiny kid. It was Blockbusters, man.
Yeah? Were you a Blockbuster boy?
Yeah, man. I loved Blockbusters. Like, it was so good. It was so good. Because it was one of those ones where I remember it was in our little town and my dad would take us there. And
where did you grow up?
I grew up in Welwyn Garden City. It was in Hertfordshire, which is like an hour outside of London. So, like a countryside kind of thing. But it was almost like a commuter city. People who were working in London would, come through, Welwyn Garden and whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, we had a Blockbusters, which was the best because you would walk in, you'd see all these films, all these like really cool stuff, be it like it was just amazing, and I just really miss it. I miss it was like a library of content, right?
Wow.
You'd walk in and you'd see all these films and be like, yep, I'm going to take that out.
That's the
and
subtitle we're going to have out the front of the store.
Oh, man, honestly.
The last video store, the library of content.
The library of content. and what I think evolved it for me as well, or like took it to the next level, was when they started doing video games.
Yes.
That was where you could borrow games and play them for like so cheap. It was amazing. And yeah, it just doesn't exist anymore, man. Like it's not there anymore. Like from where I'm at. Like, yeah, it was years ago, dude. Years.
What were the games that you were kind of picking up from there?
Everything. I genuinely think, and this is kind of why I really miss it. I think my love for games and the diversity of it all really stemmed from the crazy selection of these games, because you didn't really know much about them, right? You didn't really hear much about them. You'd literally just you'd go in there, you'd see like a pretty cool box, and then you'd take it on. Right?
There's nothing that can replace that sense of discovery. Like
That's
even
it.
going into a video game store, it's not the same as going.
It's not the same.
Oh, I can actually pick up any of these.
It is
give
not
it a
the same.
whirl,
Yeah.
have a little exploration, see how it feels.
See how I feel. If I don't like it, I return it back. But I've only spend like £3 of an experience, right? Like it was really something. And I guess that's a similar thing with film, right? Most of the time, from my memory, I didn't really know what was going on and where was, what was up, what was whatever. It was like whatever caught my eye. And if for some reason something that really sticks with me is like watching The Mask. I remember watching The Mask on VHS, and
that's the one that sticks with you, because if you see it young, it's like kind of like you're a bit taboo. You're in the creepy side of things. It's a little bit adult, but it's a cartoon,
dude.
or a live action cartoon.
Yeah, The Mask, Beetlejuice. Like these were films that I discovered at Blockbusters. So it was very, very. Oh, I miss it, man. Oh. It's nostalgic, bro.
Do you think it's kind of a place for you that kind of got you excited about exploring the art of cinema, but especially like the art of acting and the craft of acting?
No. I actually think it was more a space to appreciate the entertainment factor of it all. Like, I didn't necessarily see acting or the world of cinema as a whole as like a career. I think actually that space was a place for me to enjoy the entertainment, enjoy the consumer side of it all, which is, it's funny, like now, whenever I watch content or whenever I watch, films, TV, play games, it is work. It is a feeling of like, I know the ins and outs of it. I know how the sausage is made, man.
Yes.
So like it's very different. And even when studying at, from school about media studies and whatever and whatnot, like I was very much analyzing it all. Whereas back then it felt like I was taking this in purely from an entertainment factor,
That's the tragedy of being a fan to then becoming a practitioner. We go, oh God, it's never, I can never switch off.
Literally. And I think so I think that's why whenever I think back to those times, it is so lovely and so kind of wholesome, and naive and innocent.
Man, I also have to say, I absolutely love you on House of the Dragon.
Oh, thank you.
I read Fire and Blood, the book, in between the first season and the second season. So when I saw you were coming in as Alan of
amazing.
Hull,
Yeah, man.
and I was just so excited to see how that character's going to be put onto the screen.
Yeah.
And I think one of the key moments is, by the nature of your character, you have to shave your head daily, right?
Yeah.
Can I ask you about like the technical aspect of that scene? Because, you know, that's like almost a stunt, right?
Yeah,
like
it
putting
is.
Can you
It
talk
is.
me through it?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely, man.
one of those
So-
tough things we have to portray emotion, portray characterization, but also do something extremely technical at the same time.
Yeah, it was a lot. So it was funny. That scene where I'm shaving my head, I remember even also thinking, how are they going to do this?
Yeah.
Like, because I don't have white hair. They're
Yeah.
not going to bleach my like hair follicles.
Bleach your
like,
stubble.
You know what I mean? They're not going to do like that. They can't do that. So what they ended up doing was, which again is fascinating, they put glue on my head, right? But it was like water, you know, kind of like you could wash it off.
A soluble glue.
Yeah, soluble glue. And they'd spray white hair fibers on my head.
Oh, no
And-
way.
Yeah, man. So what ended up happening is like and what's great about spraying it on the head is like it's done in patches. So it looks like I've been shaving bits and pieces here and there. So then what I ended up doing, they gave me a dull razor. And I would, you know, dip it in water and you know, kind of wash it on and, you know, shave it off. And it looked like I was shaving and it made the sound and everything as a whole.
Holy shit.
But in the close-ups, there was this one guy who was, funnily enough, part of the crew, who was, you know, I think he was like doing props. But he's a black guy who dyed his hair white. Like,
For you or by chance?
Just as
Wow.
he does. Like that was his thing, right?
Yeah.
And so the hair and makeup team were like, you. And this poor guy was like, yeah, sure, I'll shave my head like as a close up.
So you get the hazard pay, the
like,
HBO hazard pay
honestly,
doing
dude,
that.
Honestly. So like what's so funny is like if you watch the scene again, every time it gets really close, that isn't my head. That's someone else's head,
Wow.
like who's actually dyed their hair white. Like,
Are
to
they
the
your
root,
hands,
And
though?
like, no, they're not even my hands, bro. You know whose hands they are? They're the barber's hands because he had the real like
real
cutthroat
one?
razor,
Yeah.
and he was doing it meticulously and making sure that it looked good. Every time it pulls out, I've got like the dullest blade of like razor, and I'm just wiping it off essentially. Like it was something.
It's a squeegee for you at that
Pretty
point.
much,
Yeah,
pretty much,
squeegee
man.
wiping your head up.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Well, man, it's just such a great performance.
Thank you.
And just like what thrill to like be immersed into a world like that, like fantasy.
man.
Was that something that was
Yeah.
part of your
Yeah.
like your aura growing up?
I mean, dude, I'm a huge nerd. Like I love like Lord of the Rings, you know, Star Wars, like Discworld, the books of Discworld. Like I'm like a massive nerd. So to actually be in a world of dragons is kind of very surreal. You know, I play Dungeons and Dragons like all the time. So like,
Yeah.
you know, to be in that world is nuts. So yeah, it was really, really cool to kind of experience that and kind of again just see how it's all done. It's hilarious also because again you realize that isn't your world that you live in. Like everything is CGI, and like, you have to kind of get used to that. But it was really cool, and especially something like a universe like Game of Thrones, where it is so detailed and so potent, and you know the attention to it all is really like careful. It is like as an actor who is you know in love with these sort of worlds, it's really cool to see because you gain like another level of respect for it all, you know, of really trying to create these immersive worlds. Because that's the other thing, right? Everything has been made from scratch, you know, all the construction crew, the team and everything, and the artists and stuff, they've designed this world to be as immersive as possible. And it's just so sick, man.
Does
Like,
it
it's
feel
so
immersive
cool.
for you when you're there as well?
It does when the camera's rolling. When it isn't, it is. It's
Yeah.
like you're kind of like,
When
oh,
Abu's
I'm on a
gone and
crew.
Alan's here.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm on a set right now. You know, because again, you're seeing like everyone in modern wear, like you know, coming with your tea and like, coffees and stuff. Whereas when the cameras are rolling and you've got all the background sort of artists as well, like doing their thing, it does really look cool, man.
Wow. Okay, well, I think we should travel to our own potent fantasy worlds right now.
Yep.
I'm going to send you out into the store. And this is, of course, one of the most fascinating video stores. We've got every single film that is here, you know?
Right, amazing.
You can travel all around every genre, every aisle. There is potent worlds hidden inside these cases.
Okay.
Each tape has another world upon them. So you can go into all of them, bring them back. I'm going to talk about your films. And then it will be upon me to bestow upon you a customized stuff pick recommendation based on your taste and based on our vibrant conversations.
Amazing.
New release.
So we're going to talk about your new release first. And this is one of my favorite films of the last couple of years. I'm going to say we placed this in our art house film section.
Okay.
I think it belongs there.
Okay.
Either that or comedy.
Okay. Yeah.
We have got from Yorgos Lanthimos, Poor Things.
Art house.
What a film.
What a film indeed.
What a film.
And you're talking about like immersive fantasy. What a unique immersive fantasy film this cast.
Insane. Like, I had no idea what to expect. Like, I do like Yorgos's work. I think, his work is really cool and interesting. This film was just, I don't know, it blew me away. It was an incredible world, as you say, really, really exciting. The performances were incredible. The content was very full on.
Yes.
Like it was.
Were you
it was a lot.
confronted?
Like, yeah, I think it was one of those films that really had me sort of, again, like looking and questioning even the things that I watch and the stories that I kind of take on board. And it was just brilliant. I thought it was really, really cool and different and out there. And I really enjoyed it. I
think even like when you think about Lanthimos' films, you think about like this weird tone that he sets.
Yeah.
Like it was categorized by when he started in Greece, like this Greek weird wave that was coming around as people call it, as he hates it being called the Greek weird wave, but I'll say it.
Yeah.
And then I think it's like that very specific tone. And I think that he has done such an incredible job of translating the tone from his native language in Greece to now being in English language films.
Yeah.
And I think Poor Things is kind of the epitome of all of that because it's able to match the tone, like this kind of cold, static tone with now this fantasy world that is so elaborate and so highly stylized and so gothic and so unique. And it's able to kind of create this great equilibrium between the tone and the way it looks.
Absolutely. And I think like as well, like for me, again, like it was just the performances. The performances are they're just so in it. They're so immersive, so great. Like I have never seen any of those actors do what they have done in that film, in any other film. And I think like that's what's really cool. Even William Dafoe was like, incredible.
I'll say this, and I've said it a couple of times. I'm going to say it on the record with you here right now. William Dafoe has the best filmography of any working actor.
He really does, doesn't he?
Like, even his weird shit is so interesting. Like, even his big blockbusters, he's doing like Spider-Man.
Yeah, he was incredible in Spider-Man.
The Green Goblin's like one of his best performances.
Was amazing in it. Like I remember, again, watching that film. It's a Marvel film. You see Marvel, we get Marvel fatigue. I totally understand that. And like,
but coming back.
Oh man, he was on point on that film.
Yeah, he's
So
incredible.
good.
And I think that when you think about the performances, obviously Emma Stone, Oscar-winning performance, incredible performance. I remember seeing this movie quite early, and there was all like, I love reading those websites of people going, my Oscar predictions, Emma Stone. I go, I don't know. And I saw the movie really early, go, there's no way. This performance is amazing, but this is not the kind of performance that gets an Oscar.
I know.
And then what the fuck she
I know.
does
Then
with
it
the
happens,
Oscar
bro.
for it,
And then you're like, it's great. And that's what I love about the film and TV like art space.
Yes.
It's like that was a complete wild sort of herring, right? Where normally people are like, no, it's got to go to someone who's like really serious, like role
and
or whatever.
transformative, or it's a biographical.
But the thing is, like her role was transformative. She was transformative in it. It's like, as I say, like I've never seen Emma do something like that before. So that really was insanely grand and great. And she delivered it, and she came in like hitting, and it was like. Yeah, it was brilliant. That's why I have a real love for film and even TV, because wild cards like that can come through and just change the game.
And if we're talking about wild cards, Mark Ruffalo.
Oh, man.
Like, I reckon you could watch that film on a different day and go, this is the worst performance I've ever seen.
I know.
But there's something that he captures in that, like the humor, the odd accent. Like, it's not an accent that feels real in any kind of way. It is just spectacular.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the greatest comedic performances.
Yeah.
Like, I put it up there with, like, Kevin fucking Kline in
man.
A Fish Called Wanda. There's something about what he's doing in that I cannot even articulate.
Yeah.
But it is pure, like, actual oozy delight.
It's brilliant. It is brilliant.
He epitomizes Cad. He epitomizes Cad.
Yeah, man. Honestly, and that's the thing. That's why I'm like, every performer on that they brought their like serious, like, it wasn't even like A game. They just let loose. They were completely free, which is and it's funny. It makes me think back to drama school. So when I was training drama school in London, we had a physical sort of theatre class that we did. I think it was like 3 or 4 times a week. Funnily enough, run by a guy called Yorgos.
Wow.
Who
shouts to Yorgos.
Shout out to all those Yorgoses. But he was like incredibly. It was like, it's all about the body, and it's all about finding the freedom within the body, moving your body and doing it, in a way that feels like when you do then perform, it's just free. And it's funny, like watching that film, every actor on there feels free. They feel like they just don't care. They're just doing it. They're doing the scene. They're serving the scene. And it really reminds me back to doing, Greek theatre in a way, and being like, you're just free. Just let it go. Just don't think about like the way that you're supposed to like act with the camera, like with the different lenses that you've got, or like, how your voice is going to sound. It's like if your voice sounds like whatever. And that's what I love about Mark Ruffalo. It's like the accent is so weird. You're like, where does this come from? But because of how he's doing it and taking it on board, you kind of believe the character, because it's such a whole body experience. And that's why I'm like, this film, it deserves all the praise that it gets.
That's so beautifully put, because I think what he captures to me is like this very pure form of comedy, which is I call it the comedic gap, which is the way a character perceives himself and the way that the audience perceives the character.
Yeah.
And so much of that is done through physicality, and so much of that is done through the voice and going, well, this is who this guy thinks he is.
Yes.
And this is how I'm seeing him. And then the journey that character goes on is the kind of almost not quite the flip of those two things, but those two things landing together in the same place.
Yeah.
Man.
It's so good. It's so good.
Well, that is Poor Things. Do you have any other final thoughts? Anything you need to get off your chest about Poor Things?
No, I just again, like I think the one thing that was, again, that really surprised me was, again, the sex in that film was so almost like animalistic and wild. But it made me like, again, like, look, I'm in Game of Thrones, right? So there's a lot of sex in this in these shows, right? So, but it's done in such a way that it doesn't necessarily make you feel anything. No, really. It's kind of it's
not an erotic movie.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Right? It's just spice, is what it is. But the way in which Yorgos sort of handled these moments, these scenes, and filmed them, almost made it feel like. It felt as sort of creature-like and animalistic as Emma's character was, and as William Dafoe was. It felt so weirdly visceral but artistic at the same time, and I've never seen that before. And I think like it was, these scenes were telling stories, and this is something that I remember, even talking with my agent and my team about. Like, if ever I have to do any sort of like nude scene or sex scene, like. They have to tell a story, and it's so hard to find shows or films that do that. And I feel like with Poor Things, it did that, and it was just insane. It was phenomenal. It was so good.
Yeah, Yorgos, you heard it. Give Abu a sex scene. We got to get him in a sex scene.
No, man. Yo, I'd have to talk to my mom about that, bro. Like, come on, man.
Weekly.
All right, we're going to head into our weekly section with you now. We're going to talk about 2 of your all-time favorite flicks. And fuck me, brother. The one that you've got here is one of the times where I remember vividly being in the cinema, seeing this movie.
Yep.
It is one of the classics of our lifetime.
Yeah.
Can you talk about Christopher Nolan's take on the Batman with The Dark Knight?
Man, The Dark Knight.
Action.
What a film.
Maybe
That
one of the
was-
best sequels as well.
Honestly, that was one of the films. I think that really inspired me to kind of pursue the world of acting and kind of go really into it, right? Because here I am seeing a superhero that I love and adore be transported into this world with also a villain who I think is really fascinating. The takes on this film, the cinematography, the music, just the script, like it was. I think I went to see that film, I think, at the cinema like 9 times.
Far out.
I loved this film.
Yeah.
I loved this film. And it was the first time as well. It was the first film I saw repeatedly at the cinema. And I think it's the only film I've repeatedly gone to see at the cinema like several times. And I'd still watch it today.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, it would take a lot to get you to go 9 times again now.
do you know what? Like honestly, it really would. It really, really would. Like I feel like it was one of those films where I was transported into a world where I believed that Batman could exist, as well as characters like the Joker could exist into. It was just so well done and so well performed, and it was, as I say, like the music was so well made as well.
Oh, man.
It was just like
The score takes you on the journey.
Dude, I think I've listened to that score like the most of my, within my, like in my life. Like it conjured up such a feeling in me, man. Like it made me go watch it 9 times, dude.
Yeah.
Like it really was an incredible masterpiece of cinema.
How old are you? You were doing like a teenager at the time,
Yeah, I was a
right?
teenager at the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember the age, but like I do. But I was in secondary school, so yeah, definitely a teenager. Yeah.
Because I would have seen it, I think it would have been like maybe 15 when it came out,
Right.
15 or
Right,
16.
right.
And I had just gone to like a senior campus of secondary school. So we were a bunch of new friends. It was the first thing that we all did together.
Okay.
I remember it so clearly because it was a very weird point of time in Sydney. It was World Youth Day. So the Pope was in town.
Wow. Okay.
The Pope was in town, so it meant that public transport was free, and the city was just a
Wow.
little bit of chaos.
Okay.
And so I remember all just so distilled. This is like the most vivid day of my life in my memory. I just go, I remember all of it. And so we could sneak in kind of anywhere. We're all getting public transport as teenagers, running around like little rats and stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember we were going to first day screening, or was a slightly early screening or something.
okay.
And I remember some of us bought tickets, and then some of us like opened the secret door from the street that goes directly into the cinema in the city. And so it was just like this big group of boys that were like all the first time we were all properly hanging out together. And I remember 2 thoughts that I had watching The Dark Knight the first time vividly. I remember the actual thoughts in my head.
Right.
The first one was, I think this is the best ensemble of actors I've ever seen in a movie since I saw The Godfather. Like, that was the exact tone that went through my head. Because it was just like the way they're all intersecting with each other. I'm going, wow, Heath Ledger is fucking amazing, the Joker.
Yeah.
And then I'm going, whoa, Aaron Eckhart, he's amazing as
Yeah.
fucking Harvey Dent.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, Gary Oldman, I think he's actually secretly the best one in this
Yeah,
movie.
exactly,
Like
yeah.
all that going through my head. And then the next thought was when there's a point in the film where you think the film is going to end. We go, well, surely they're saving Harvey Dent to become Two-Face for the next movie.
Yeah.
And I know all this because I've read the comic book. So I
Yeah.
know surely they've got more stories of Two-Face down the line. And then when you feel that, hang on a second, no, they're doing it all here.
Yeah.
It's continuing.
Yeah.
The thought that I had in my head that I'll never forget was, I could spend the rest of my life sitting in this cinema watching this movie and it could never end and I'd be really happy.
Oh man, yeah, I know what you mean. Again, as I say, like there was a reason why I wanted to watch it 9 times because I didn't want it to end. I didn't want it to. I enjoyed it and I loved it, and I think like the as you say, like each performance brought a level of power, man. Like when I think there was a moment as well where again, I can't say spoilers because it's been years since that film has
You
been
can
out.
say anything
Do you know what
about this
Like,
film.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's
But,
ingrained in the culture of this film.
It really is. But it's it was the moment where essentially, Christian Bale, Batman, essentially is like now turning, he's like he has to go the extra mile in order to kind of match Joker. And again, reading the comics, right? You get it. You get, it's happened before. But this time I really felt it. This time I felt like, oh, wow, this guy has to go the extra mile in order to kind of beat this guy. And it was insane. It was just so good, man. It was so well done. And yeah, as you say, like the ensemble of characters it was just a right magic. And also, it's a sequel. So normally, like rule of thumb, sequels are shit. Like, they are terrible. Like you shouldn't do sequels. This sequel slapped. Like it was insane.
It's that perfect escalation because the interesting thing is when you go back and watch Batman Begins, it is a little bit more slightly in the fantasy area, slightly. It edges a little bit more into like beyond reality. And then you've got The Dark Knight, which really, really grounds it in a sense of reality. Like it's got far more in common with crime films. Obviously, Heat is such a big key example of this, and the works of Michael Mann. It's so much more grounded in that sense. Like the most fantastical thing is the Joker has face paint on. Like that's it. Yeah. And then Two-Face survives a burning. Yeah. So it's like those kind of things are just the things that are comic booky. But and then it's Batman. There's a guy in a suit fighting everyone.
$1 billion But the thing is, again, that was the other thing as well. Like the tech that he was building.
They grounded such reality, right?
I mean, like you look at the Cybertruck. Like today of Elon Musk. Like it kind of looks a bit like the tank in Batman, right? Just less freaking worthy.
It's a little bit uglier.
It's terrible. It's terrible. But it was grounded in that reality. Like even with Batman flying, right? Normally in the comics, like it's the cape, right? And he just does it, and it's like, wow, it's amazing. But they made it so technical with this version, with the Dark Knight. You were again feeling like, oh, I totally believe this. This totally makes sense.
I think as well, like what really works about that is, yes, it's grounded in reality, so you believe it. But because of everything you're saying about the way it constructs those things to go, well, here's how we're going to do this. There's such a sense of imagination in those that still captures the sense of imagination for a young person like we were watching those movies. Because you're like, oh, I'm imagining all these great things and I'm understanding how they work. It kind of takes you through those things to give you that sense as well.
Totally.
Like it is a bit of a magic trick, this film.
It really is, man. It really is.
And I would be remiss if we didn't talk about Heath Ledger as the Joker. Can you tell me the first time seeing that character, like what you felt?
Terrified, excited, and just in awe. I think I have never, you watch these comic book films having this idea that, it's just comic booky. You're never really, like the performances are a bit OTT. It's a bit like a pantomime. Like you're not really necessarily going to take it seriously. The Joker, I think to this day, has changed. It's almost Marlon Brando-esque level of changing how people approach acting overall. Like it was so transformative and so. I think this was the first time as well. Like it was where I'd seen an actor do a performance, and I needed to know more about the actor because I didn't know who Heath Ledger was until I saw the Joker. Then I'm seeing him in that night film, and seeing him in
Knight's Tale.
Knight's Tale, and then and I'm just like, oh wow, this guy is like in this. It was incredible. I think it was one of the, again, as I say, like I think it really shaped and changed, and is still having the effect on so many actors of especially my generation, where people want to take a bit of that magic, even a slither, and try and put that in their performances. It was incredible, man. Incredible. Like what you guys conjured with that guy, man. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, really, really inspiring.
Yeah, for us in Australia, he is one of those people where he was just like one of a kind. Where
like insane.
Yeah.
Insane. Like the talent that exudes from him, and especially in a role like that. The fact that, like, again, people would watch the Joker, and you know, even of today, with the Joker of today, right? With
Joaquin
with
Phoenix.
Joaquin, like there is a level of like, okay, cool, I get it. Like he's a jaded guy. He's what it is. It's Joaquin. Like, and you kind of are like, yeah, it's what, you know, it's Joaquin's doing a very good job of this, and this is what it is. The Joker of Heath Ledger was so. It was like that was the character. That was who they were. I don't know. I don't know if anyone could ever match that or capture that. It was nuts, man. It was nuts. Like, to a performance that is, you know, terrifying within a comic book world where people, you know, from the get-go won't take it seriously because it's Batman. It's a guy who dresses up as a giant bat and, like, you know, runs around, you know, the city beating up criminals. But, like, the level of fear this guy generates was through that film, through that performance, is insane. Insane.
Well, I can't think of a better place to leave our conversation on The Dark Knight.
Oh, yeah.
That is it. One of the great films, one of the great performances. And we're going to move on to your final weekly choice. This is another powerhouse ensemble of acting, a film that I've not revisited in a long time, but Gavin O'Connor's film Warrior.
Drama.
This is a film about, it's a family drama.
It is a family drama.
It's set in the world of UFC fighting.
Yep.
And it stars Joel Edgerton and Tom Hardy as brothers.
Yep.
And Nick Nolte as their father.
Yeah.
Now, these are three incredible performances in this film as well.
Yeah, and I honestly, again, this is what introduced me to Tom Hardy as an actor, and it was incredible to watch. Again, from the box art, right, from the poster, it's a sports film, right?
Yeah.
It's about fighting. It's like, you know, it's that kind of thing. But as you say, it's almost like that acts as a vehicle for this actual family drama that is going between these two brothers and this family dynamic. It's about masculinity within a family dynamic. Who's going to take the mantle of being that father figure when that father figure themselves have failed. Like it was just such a good film. And it was one of those ones where I remember watching it and thinking to myself, yeah, I'm going in here to just watch like a really cool fighting film. And then it just gets really deep and you're like, man, this is speaking to me on a different level and a different soul. And I had to like rewatch it several times to be like, oh yeah, I'm getting it now. The fight sequences are great. But they are again, it's a vehicle, much like the sex and poor things. It's a vehicle to convey a different message and meaning. And, you know, I can, especially the final fight with, you know, between the two brothers, like, oh man, it is so beautiful. It's a beautiful display of again, just two men who, again, like we used to have this thing at drama school where we would say, like, with musicals, where if you feel something so powerfully and the words are struggling to convey what you feel, that's when you break into a song. And that was kind of like that was like the message or the idea of like why these people were singing and why you'd go into these songs and these musicals. With this, it felt like, these two brothers who almost like couldn't vocalize or verbalize essentially how they felt or where their heads were at. So much so, they had all these bubbling emotions that they had to fight. They had to get physical. They had to push it this way in order to convey their love for one another in a way. And that was what was so beautiful about that film. It was incredible, man. So good. Again, like it just made me, again, it makes you look at masculinity and that whole UFC fighting element in such a different light. Like now, it's a shame because now it's very different. Like we see UFC very differently. But that film it almost felt like an epic, you know?
I love the way you put it. You put it so well because I think that is the power of like sports films and especially boxing pictures. I think because the stakes are so built into this, like the violence of those things. So the stakes are really high for those films.
Yeah.
And then I think what sports films do so well is they communicate this sense of emotion to usually, I mean, the key audience for those types of films, men that are a little bit perhaps more closed off to those emotions or are not willing to kind of express them or not wanting to explore films and art that will talk to them in that way. So I think there's something so potent about films like Warrior, and obviously films like Rocky and stuff is where I
Yeah.
think about that
Yeah.
genre really like just communicating emotionally to them and
Yeah.
allowing like permission for men to feel tender,
Yeah.
or even teaching men how to be tender and
Yeah,
stuff. Like there's
exactly.
something about them that just really works. Warrior is a great example of it. Can you tell me about the Tom Hardy performance and like that impact on you?
Oh man, like I think the thing about Tom Hardy, right, is this is like I didn't realize I'd seen him in Star Trek. Where he,
I
like, the
know,
film,
right?
Where he blew like again,
Yes,
like he played
in
the
Star Trek
villain and, like,
Nemesis.
yeah, and,
Yeah.
like, he was great in that. But
Dude, it was like 10 years later ago. Wait a second. It's him?
This is the guy.
Yes.
And like the thing, and you know, and we were actually, we were talking about this, right? Is the sense of like, you know, the one thing about actors is like, and what happens is you end up getting this obsession over them when they do something really, really great and really cool. Anyway, from my perspective, and you want to watch the next thing. So like for me, Tom Hardy was, especially in Warrior, playing this really kind of, you know, troubled, beat down kind of character who, you know, was suffering from a lot of trauma, to then seeing him, you know, doing like, you know, because the other film is that, you know, that I mentioned as well or was thinking about was Locke,
Yeah.
right? And thinking about seeing him in Locke and it's just him
Just
in a car, just driving. He is such an incredible performer. He's so good. He's great in Peaky Blinders. Peaky Blinders, he's like, every time he's on the screen, it just shines. Every time I see this guy, I am like in awe. I mean, Locke, again, was one of those films where it's about, again, masculinity, emotions, about the idea of like being a family man, being a father that, you know, that his father wasn't. And the fact that he's constantly, it was so well done and so well executed. And it's all down to this guy who is who can work the camera in such a way that it feels like he's taking you on this journey. I mean, my guy's in Venom, right? And like, you know, and like,
And I love him in Venom.
and like, this is, and like, don't get me wrong, like, this is the thing about this, you know, the Sony Spider-Man films. They're difficult. Like, you got Madam Web and all this, like any Marvel sort of like when they handle, but Venom, my guy smashes it. Like,
Dude, when he jumps in that lobster tank, I go, come on.
Oh,
no one could do that.
No one could do that. And I think like this is what's genius. This is what's so great about him as a performer, as an artist. He's just able to really convey the like brutal honesty of the scene in an artistic way that makes you feel for the character. And I love that. I think like he is just, again, like, you know, you look at, as I say, Warrior, he's playing this kind of broody sort of character. We've seen that done to death 101 times in films, you know, but he brings this element of like this vulnerability that you rarely see in men.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, look, the guy actually is like I think he's like a jujitsu master, right?
Yeah.
In like real life, but he brings this tenderness and vulnerability to this film where you're like, oh man, I just want to give this guy a hug.
Yeah. The way they describe it, sophisticated raw precision is the way that he's able to just do it. Like it feels very raw, feels very precise.
Yeah.
Genius actor.
Genius actor, man.
Staff pick.
Well, now we've talked about your weekly films. It is upon me to go through the archives myself and find you a staff pick recommendation.
Okay.
And it's you know, it's a tough job. It's a tough job.
Right.
And I was trying to think about, you know, I had the feeling you were wandering into the store today.
Okay.
Let's say I knew that you were coming in.
Yeah.
So I was really thinking about what we could recommend you. And I always try when we've got someone from overseas coming into the store here in Australia, I like to give them an Australian film to pass on with and to perhaps share the word with it.
Okay.
And I watched your speech at the Video Game Awards.
Oh, yeah.
When you're talking about your game, Tales of Kanzara, Zal.
Yeah.
And you spoke so beautifully about it. Like, it's actually such a moving speech that you have
thank
there.
you, man.
When you talk about, like, the inspiration of grief and talking about your father.
Yeah.
And the thing that really stuck with me about your video game is that this idea of story within a story. And
Yes.
storytelling being key and
Yep.
being so important, and storytelling being a way of like sharing and expressing self
Yep.
and expressing culture. And there's this great Australian film. It's one of the films that got me into, I think, birthed my passion for Australian cinema.
Oh, wow.
It's from 2006. It's called 10 Canoes.
drama.
10 Canoes.
Have you heard of 10 Canoes
No,
before?
I haven't.
Well, it's my pleasure to tell you all about
Oh,
it. 'Cause
right,
It's
okay.
one of those films. It's co-directed by one of Australia's iconic filmmakers, Rolf de Heer and Peter Jagir.
Right.
And it is a story within a story within a story. It's Australia's Northern Territory. An Aboriginal narrator tells a story about his ancestors on a goose hunt. So it's all in language except for the narration, which is in English.
Right.
A youngster on the hunt is being tempted to adultery with his elder brother's wife. So an elder tells him a story from the mythical past about how evil can slip in and cause havoc unless prevented by virtue according to customary tribal law.
Wow.
So it's got all these elements of story within a story and the idea of how stories can impart like a bit of morality tale and how they can apply, how the past can apply to now as well.
Yeah.
And there's something that about it, it's so powerfully engrossing, this sense of like immersion within story that flows so naturally.
Yeah.
The thing that's really cool is it's unexpectedly quite delightfully funny. Like it is funny. There's like fart jokes throughout and stuff, but it's just so beautiful. And so the stuff that is set in the present day of the world at the time is in black and white. And then when they go further into the past to tell the story within the story, it's in this really vibrant, vivid color.
Wow.
And it's one of those great examples of collaboration in film history. Rolf de Heer has worked with this actor, David Gulpilil, who is another huge icon of Australian cinema, one of our greatest screen presences ever. They'd collaborated on a film together. They always wanted to do something together. And Gulpilil kept on trying to get Rolf to come to country so he can experience his world and wanting to make a film together about his country and his people in his language. And so Rolf, who is a European Australian filmmaker, he took a sense of duty to be able to tell the story of these people, of Gulpilil's tribe. And he saw himself as a conduit to tell their story. So it's not him, it's not his story. He just sees himself as the conduit to be able to bring this story to the world. And I've interviewed him a few times about this. He said that the film had to do two things, two specific purposes. One, the film had to show future generations of these people like their past.
Right.
And so he took that on it very seriously. It was a storytelling as means of continuing and understanding culture and history. The other purpose was for the film to play in cinemas across the world. And now it's one of those like great films of world cinema. It's how it's seen. So
That's
it's like
amazing.
this really, really beautiful film, very funny, very entertaining, and it's just stunning.
10 Canoes.
10 Canoes.
Okay, I'm gonna
Rolf
watch
de
this
Heer,
film,
David
man. I'm
Gulpilil.
gonna watch. You've sold it. Okay,
I
give it
think
to
you'll
me, man.
really dig it.
Okay.
Like especially the way you're kind of been talking about your game. I
Yeah.
think that there's something about that in sharing culture and sharing culture to the world.
Yes.
That I think is essential.
Yeah,
in
and
art.
I think for me, like especially with Tales of Kinzera, like the one thing that I wanted to do was I didn't want to shove it down people's throats of like this is just an African game. Like that acted as a vehicle in order to convey this human story about grief.
Yeah.
And like it was something that I, again, this idea of sharing tales, of myths, these legends, they're all told to teach us a lesson, which is why I really love, what you were saying to me about 10 Canoes. It's like it is there to, rather than, tell you not to do it, let me just tell you a story that you will learn through osmosis, essentially what the moral is here. But I'm not going to tell you what that journey is. You will go on that journey yourself. And that's something that I really wanted to hit with Zhao, because from my experience of grief, it was very much a thing where like I was told like what my experience and feelings should be, like the whole 5 stages and whatever and whatnot. And it didn't really resonate with me. Like I realized that actually this is a journey I have to go through myself. I have to like learn myself. And I really wanted to convey that in a video game where you give agency to the player to kind of do what they've got to do. And like that was why it had to be a video game as well, rather than necessarily like a film or a TV show, which would have made sense because of just my background as a whole. But that's really cool, man. I love that about what you were sharing about 10 Canoes. I'm gonna have to watch this film, man.
I think you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. I hope you do at least.
Yeah,
if not, I don't know what's gonna happen to me.
No.
I'm gonna lose my job, man. I'm gonna lose my job. You have to like it.
I'm gonna have to like it now. Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's cool, man. Like man, this is the thing about storytelling, man. There's just so many stories out there that are so powerful and potent, some which are terrible, and like even like through the terrible ones, you learn something from them, which I really like. So yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Well, thank you so much for joining me here in the Last Video Store. You have got a beautiful pile of movies leaving with you. You've got Poor Things, you've got The Dark Knight, you've got Warrior, you've got 10 Canoes, and brother, I'm going to slip Locke in there right at the bottom for you too.
Man.
You're going to
Thank
go
you.
home with Locke.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you so much, Abu. Thank you for joining us. Anything else you want to say? Push people towards?
Honestly, I'm just really happy that you brought me here, man. Like, it's great. It's really nice to kind of, again, just sort of see Sydney, see the world, see what it is. But also, you know, as I say, like talk about film and TV, talk about the arts as a whole. And yeah, it's exciting, man.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The Last Video Store.
Thank you for checking out The Last Video Store with me, your host, Alexi Toliopoulos. Please subscribe, follow, share the podcast amongst your friends as well. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TikTok, Instagram, Last Video Store Batuta. So check us out and share us in all of those places. And if you want your own bespoke customized recommendation from me, you can submit an online order at any of those places, in a comment, in a 5-star review, with your weeklies and your new release pick, and I will come to you like I did at the top of this episode and give you a recommendation based on your taste. So thank you very much. Love you, love movies.